Next on the news, it's been 2 decades, but they've never missed a check.
When we get the mailing every year, it's yes, absolutely.
Why this Catholic couple never forgets the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign, even though they left Brooklyn behind. A packed church, a parish, says goodbye to their former pastor, Father Otis Young Jr., laid to rest after being murdered. Then this. A Christmas comeback. The Dancing Grannies returned to Waukesha a year after an SUV plowed into their parade. Plus, the Vatican gets decked out for Christmas, but the Pope says don't let the dazzling lights distract you from the real reason for the season. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. They're not Brooklyn residents anymore, but that hasn't changed the way Joan and Lou Gansilla give back. They're longtime donors to the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign, and in recent years, their contribution has helped them remember good times in the old neighborhood. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has their story from Farmingdale, New Jersey.
And the Grinch ended up coming out every Christmas.
The first thing you see when you walk into Lou and Joan Gansilla's house are toys.
And then sat next to him in the presider's chair throughout Mass.
They belong to their son Joseph, or as he was known in the Diocese of Brooklyn, Father Joe.
His love for the children. And
they would start asking him
in September. Who's going to come?
Who's coming for Christmas?
And he would never tell.
I'm not telling.
Father Joe used these toys every Christmas as a way to relate to the children at his masses, right up until Christmas of 2019, 10 days before he died.
I could not believe it.
Sometimes we still can't believe it. We just expect them to walk through the door. You know, it's just, you don't expect that. You're not supposed to be burying a child.
And she gave it to us.
Like Father Joe, his parents know how impactful toys can be in a child's life, which is why they've been donating to the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign for more than 25 years.
When we get the mailing every year, it's yes, absolutely.
Joan and Lou have since moved away from the Diocese of Brooklyn.
And there's Regina.
And their home parish, the Basilica of Regina Pacis.
We've attended there all our lives.
We saw the church being built.
But for them, it will always be home.
Anytime we go back to visit our son, when we walk into the church, we have that feeling. We're home.
We're home.
Our roots were there, you know.
And they, in a way, they still are.
And giving to Bright Christmas is a chance to make that home a better place for those who really need it. Losing a child changed the Gansillas forever.
Just a few days before he passed away. This is New Year's Eve. He died on January the 6th.
But their faith and connection to the Diocese of Brooklyn has sustained them.
We get the tablet and we see all the letters. Thank you so much for what Bright Christmas gave to us. So that makes us feel good.
And with a new year and a higher goal, the Gansillas are giving a little more. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Want to join the Gansilla family on their Christmas mission? There's still time to help the Tablet reach their goal, and they need your help. We've gotten our first Bright Christmas total so far. The paper has already raised more than $16,000 for kids in need, but they are still a ways away from their goal of $125,000 before December 25th. The need is great this year for families fighting inflation. Here's how you can get involved. Make a check out to the Bright Christmas Fund and mail it to Bright Christmas LB number 2118, P.O. Box 95,000, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the zip code 19195. Or you can make your donation online at thetablet.org/brightchristmas. And want to learn even more about exactly where your money will go? Currents News has you covered. We'll have a special show highlighting all the good the campaign does, from its generous donors to the grateful recipients. That'll air on Wednesday, December 7th at our normal time, 7 o'clock, right here on Net TV. Now to a tradition that spreads around the world in a matter of days. A lit flame just landed at JFK Airport in Queens, and it's been burning since Bethlehem. The so-called peace light, symbolic of Christ's light, is perpetually lit in the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. Then it goes on a journey. Boy and Girl Scouts spread the flame around the world with a message of friendship. On Sunday, the flame flew into New York City's International Airport, its first stop in the United States. Our Lady of the Skies Chapel. But that's just the beginning. Dozens of participants then take bits of the flames so its message of peace can spread. As you can see, it doesn't just stop in Queens. Delegates as far as Arizona and Texas came to keep the light of Christ. How long the flame keeps burning will depend on each keeper. Some try to maintain it until the Epiphany. It'll also take back to the skies this week. It's going to travel to Ukraine on Sunday and then to Pope Francis on December 13th. A New York Catholic high school is celebrating almost 2 centuries of providing a quality education.
Come to show the way to your people, your chosen.
Xavier High School, a Jesuit school in Manhattan, culminated its 175th anniversary year with a mass at the Church of St. Francis Xavier on Saturday, followed by a gala with New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Jesuit father John Larkin founded Xavier, an all-boys school, in 1847 with only 5 cents in his pocket. Back then, it was called the School of the Holy Name of Jesus. And from one celebration to another, the Church of St. Simon and Jude celebrated 125 years over the weekend with Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan and former parishioner Bishop Frank Caggiano. The now Bishop of Bridgeport grew up in Gravesend, right near the parish. He even mentioned during his homily that he remembers seeing the current church being built while in class. The original church was built at the turn of the 20th century to minister to the predominantly Irish immigrant population. As the Diocese of Immigrants grew more diverse and more parishioners began to pack the pews, the parish decided to build a bigger church, and that's the one that stands there today. In Louisiana, hundreds of mourners gathered for the funeral of a murdered priest. Father Otis Young was remembered as a devoted priest and a man of deep faith. The Covington congregation now relying on their own faith to deal with their loss. Family, friends, and parishioners filled the pews of St. Peter's Catholic Church in Covington, Louisiana, to say goodbye to beloved former pastor, Father Otis Young.
Today we are here to remember as a people of faith that violence and death do not have the final word.
Father Otis's body was found burned beyond recognition last week alongside the body of parish employee Ruth Pratt's. The congregation gathered here last week amid the anxiety over his disappearance.
It felt like a dream. And it didn't take long for all of us to come to the conclusion that we were not having a dream. It wasn't a dream at all, it was a nightmare.
The timeline of the chilling murders is becoming more clear. Police described the moments before the killings, just after the suspect, Antonio Tyson, was seen riding a bike near Pratt's home.
The subject circles back and speaks to Pratt and Father Young for a few moments. At 3:55 p.m., the subject then leaves on his bicycle and parks it at a nearby grocery store. At 4:09 p.m., the subject is seen walking to Pratt's front door with what appears to be a knife being held behind his back in a crouched position and appears to enter Ruth Pratt's residence.
While there was sadness during the Mass, there was also happiness and laughter as Father Otis was remembered by his friend.
Otis was a simple priest. In addition to this truth, Otis was loud. He laughed loudly, he preached loudly, he banged around the rectory and the office loudly.
Archbishop Gregory Amond says Father Otis spent 10 years as pastor of St. Peter's and considered it home and its parishioners family.
Like you, I respect him because he was a man of deep faith, as Father Brew mentioned. He was a man of integrity. He was a man of love. He was a reconciler. And so we thank God for him.
Archbishop Amond said we will never know just how many people Father Otis touched in his 21 years of priestly ministry. Also influential in the community was the second victim in the attack, pastoral associate Ruth Pratt. She served the church for decades and was caring for Father Young after he had a stroke. Her family describing her as the type of person everyone wants to be around.
She helped us raise our 4 children, so she had a very close relationship with our kids, a special relationship, a special bond. They called her Mimi. and it's just heartbreaking. It's devastated the kids. It's devastated her daughters.
The funeral arrangements for Ruth Pratt will be held later this week at St. Peter's Church. The Supreme Court is hearing arguments today that could settle a First Amendment question they left open years ago. Here's what's happening. A web designer in Colorado wants to limit her wedding-related services to celebrations between a man and a woman because of her Christian beliefs. But state law there prohibits discrimination against gay people by businesses open to the public. The ruling could have enormous consequences. Support for the state would allow the government to force people to do things at odds with their beliefs. At the same time, the opposite could allow many businesses to refuse service to specific people. Meanwhile, a criminal investigation is underway in North Carolina, and it could end in domestic terrorism charges. Utility crews are working to bring power back to nearly 40,000 customers after substations were shot up. No one knows who did it yet, but the county sheriff is calling them cowards. Mike Valerio has the latest.
It's an attack upending the lives of tens of thousands of people. Law enforcement in Moore County, North Carolina confirmed an intentional and targeted attack on power substations with the damage caused by gunfire.
No group has stepped up to acknowledge or accept that they're the ones that done it. So, yeah, I call them cowards. This individual that done this, it was targeted. It wasn't random.
Officials said the person or people who opened fire knew exactly what they were doing. Equipment at 2 substations vandalized and a gate from one substation taken off its hinges.
Got no way to heat because we don't have a fireplace. And then we don't have no gas grill or anything like that, so we're just stranded.
Around 40,000 people initially lost power Saturday night as temperatures hovered around freezing. Among the emergency ripple effects,
our medical calls have increased due to people maybe being on oxygen or having other medical devices that require power.
The local utility said Thursday could be when all power is restored. A countywide curfew and emergency declaration is in effect, while federal and state law enforcement keep investigating.
That is not done without some organization, and it is not taken lightly. So these people will be facing significant criminal sentencing if they are convicted.
And I can promise you to the perpetrators out there, we will find you.
Mike Valerio, Currents News.
There are rumors tonight that the attack was an attempt to stop a local drag show. But so far, investigators say they have not been able to tie anything back to that. A Catholic ministry center on the University of Nebraska's campus received a death threat Saturday morning signed by Jane's Revenge. That's a calling card used by pro-abortion activists. The note was addressed to the pastor of the Newman Center. Here's what someone wrote. If our right to abortion in Bellevue is taken away due to the attempt to pass an abortion ban and it gets passed, we will shoot up your Newman Center with our new AR-74 rifles. Sincerely, Jane's Revenge. The pastor called the note unsettling and unfortunate. Police are investigating. There's a lot more news headed your way. A year after tragedy struck, the Dancing Grannies March On. Waukesha holds its annual Christmas parade. Plus, a busy boutique filled with holiday shoppers. Why the shopping spree is helping those in need. And the Christmas season is officially underway at the Vatican as the nativity scene in St. Peter's Square is unveiled. There was just one thing the community of Waukesha needed this year: to stage a Christmas comeback. They vowed to keep on dancing, and the Dancing Grannies did. The Wisconsin community's Christmas parade returned yesterday, 1 year after a driver plowed through the same downtown streets, killing 6 people, mostly members of the Grannies group, and injuring dozens more. Currents News' Andy Madison tells us the theme of this year's parade was Peace on Earth.
Cheers! And to you, Jen. And to you. And to you.
With a toast to remember those who they've lost, the Dancing Grannies ready to march in this year's Waukesha Christmas Parade. This group was devastated a year ago when a man drove his vehicle onto the parade route, killing 6 people, including 4 members of the Dancing Grannies, including 79-year-old Ginny Sorensen. her family leading the way for the group.
My mom would have wanted us to be here, and we're doing this in remembrance of her. I wouldn't have missed it.
It is emotional not only for the grannies, but also for the thousands who lined the streets to watch.
Seeing the dancing grannies come by is definitely tears to your eyes. Like, it was just awesome, and just that moment of just like the community coming together.
The annual parade through downtown Waukesha is a tradition in the small suburb of Milwaukee, and they were determined to keep that tradition going this year. There is a remembrance float and many other reminders throughout this year's parade of the tragic events of a year ago. Organizers want to honor the victims and also thank the first responders who rushed to the scene last year. And they want to show the community is strong.
Anytime that there's tragedy, really brings a community really together. And this year, the city really answered.
Security is tight. Police officers posted throughout the parade route, and the city has placed barriers at intersections along the route to prevent vehicles from entering, all to keep evil out.
I firmly believe that light always overcomes darkness, and sometimes it takes a while for that to happen, but you never quit.
That was Andy Madison reporting. Back in October, Darrell Brooks was given 6 consecutive life sentences and more than 700 additional years in prison for driving his SUV into that crowd. Last year, there were less than 60 groups in the parade. This year, 120 groups wanted to participate, but organizers had to cap it at 80 due to space and timing limitations.
You be a good girl, okay? You're my little star.
Yes. To make everyone feel safe and relaxed, a local man brought 14 therapy dogs that he rescued and trained. They were all dressed up for the holidays, excited to be the center of attention.
High five. High five. Shake.
This is their job.
He leans in and snuggles, comfort, and they bring down anxiety, your heart rate. I could get a nurse in here, she could take somebody's blood pressure, and once the dog's on the lap, take it again, and it'll drop.
Community members said they absolutely adored the dogs because they give a lot of love without expecting anything back. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan got into the giving spirit this weekend. Saturday was his shopping day. No, that's not His Eminence Christmas shopping for himself. He's selecting special gifts for 125 families in need in the New York area. Cardinal Dolan joined Catholic Charities of New York for their annual St. Nicholas Project Volunteer Shopping Day. The organization set up a boutique at the Church of Our Savior in Manhattan, where Cardinal Dolan and around 200 volunteers became personal shoppers and picked out Christmas clothes for those who need them. There's another urgent call for help in New York. This one is coming from Senator Chuck Schumer. He wants the feds to rush RSV relief. Hospitals are dealing with an unprecedented surge. It's been the busiest season that the state has seen in decades, and he wants the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to take action immediately. Meanwhile, relief for children battling the virus is getting even harder to find. Walgreens across the country are saying they are still able to meet the demands of customers and patients. But earlier this week, many hospitals said they were experiencing a shortage of liquid acetaminophen and ibuprofen. Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson, which makes children's Tylenol and children's Motrin, is increasing its production. All but 6 states are experiencing high or very high respiratory virus levels. A children's choir from Ukraine is in New York City right now, and they just wrapped up a once-in-a-lifetime performance. Sunday night, the children who practiced in dark bomb shelters performed under the lights of Carnegie Hall. That song they're singing is a Ukrainian carol known as the Carol of the Bells, and it was first performed in the United States to a sold-out audience right where they're standing 100 years ago. The choir hopes the notes from Ukraine concert will shed light on Russia's continuing attacks on Ukraine. Still to come on Currents News, what this baby did on his baptism day that caused hundreds of thousands to like the video. We'll show you. And St. Peter's Square is now shining bright. We'll take you to the Christmas tree lighting when we come back. Do you remember your baptism? Most of us don't, but one brand new Catholic is never going to forget it because his parents are never going to stop showing everyone this viral video.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. And your little brother in Christ, Cooper McGlasha.
So cute. The video was posted last week. It already has nearly 2 million views and over 324,000 comments. Let's just say joining the faith is worth the applause. You better watch out. Pope Francis has broken a world record. The Holy Father's watch was auctioned Wednesday. The swatch, which was worn throughout the Pope's pontificate, was sold for a record-breaking $56,250. This is more than 1,000 times its retail price, making it the most expensive swatch to ever exist. The proceeds from the charity auction are all going to a special foundation in honor of a watch-loving teenager who passed away. Well, if Pope Francis wants a new watch for the holidays, he now has a new tree to put it under. The Vatican's Christmas tree was lit up over the weekend, but the Holy Father said we need to be careful that we don't get caught up in all the holiday glitz. Justin McClellan is standing by in St. Peter's Square with the story.
Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas here in the Vatican as this nearly 100-foot fir illuminates St. Peter's Square. And right next to it is a hand-carved wooden creche. Pope Francis said this weekend that it embodies the true message of Christmas. It's Christmas time in the Vatican. This nativity scene, composed of 18 life-sized wooden figures, including the Holy Family, farm animals, and artisans, was unveiled before crowds braving heavy rain in St. Peter's Square, alongside an impressive nearly 100-foot white fir, which was lit up on Saturday evening. That morning, the Pope met with the delegations that created the creche and donated the tree to the Vatican. He reminded them to keep the true meaning of Christmas in mind as represented by the nativity scene.
E se vogliamo festeggiare davvero il Natale, riscopriamo attraverso il presepe la sorpresa e lo stupore della piccolezza. La piccolezza di Dio, che si fa piccolo.
Tucked in among its stunning lights, the tree's ornaments were made by children at a psychiatric rehabilitation center, residents in a nursing home, and school children from central Italy. This year's creche comes from the northern Italian town of Udine, near the country's border with Austria, and the tree is from the central Italian region of Abruzzo. Inside the Paul VI audience hall is a nativity scene from Guatemala. In the month of December, Pope Francis will sit next to it during his weekly general audience. As Pope Francis prepares for his busy Christmas schedule, everything is in place here in front of St. Peter's Basilica. The only missing piece, the infant Jesus, which will be placed in the manger on Christmas Day. In St. Peter's Square, Justin McClellan, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. We leave you tonight with another look at the Christmas display inside St. Peter's Square. Hope to see you again next time.